Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seahawk Recap Show. Seahawk game recap for week 2, Seahawks versus Lions, or should I say Lions versus Seahawks, because we went to Fort Field, and look at that. Week 1 was a bit of a dud, 30-13, and now the Seahawks get a win. It is in overtime, yes, but it was 37-31, and they got it done. And I am so ecstatic, man. But it's always, as a Seahawks fan, it's never easy. You have games where you'll just every single time you watch a Seahawks game, you'll have about like 3 heart attacks and a bunch of cardiac arrest because you just never know what this team will do, and it'll always be a roller coaster of emotions. But before we get into this week's game recap, if you like this video, please leave a like as it helps out the channel immensely, more than you know. If you really liked it and would like to see some more content from me in the future, please consider subscribing. And if you want, this is also very helpful. You can share it with not only your Seahawks buddies, but anybody who really just likes football in general, because that will get more traffic to the channel, and we can try to build a nice little community here. But enough of me rambling. Let's get to the recap of week 2. Oh, man. Ford Field, man. A little story for you before we start this off. This was the first ever game I went to. This is the first ever stadium I have went to, and it was now a couple years ago in October, and it was a Seahawks versus Lions game, and I got to watch the Seahawks win here for my first live showing ever, so that was pretty cool. But let's get into the game, shall we? Game summary: 37-31. Seahawks win on the road because they can't win at home because that would just be too easy. But everything changed this game for the Seahawks. So let's start out with the Seahawks stats: 393 total yards, 311 passing yards, 82 rushing yards, 5.9 yards per play, 28 first downs, went 5 for 11 on third down efficiency, went on fourth down 1 for 1, had 67 total plays, 1 sack allowed, 3 punts, and something I'm going to get to: 10 penalties for 95 yards. That is really beginning to make me annoyed, and that's still a problem that I will get to. But no fumbles, no interceptions, and the possession time: 37 minutes, 16 seconds of possession time. On the other side, you have to give it to the Lions. They played immaculate. 418 total yards, 316 passing yards, 102 rushing yards, 6.5 yards per play, 27 first downs, went 6 for 11 on third down. And Dan Campbell, man, he has the cojones to do this. 1 for 3 on fourth downs, but he went for it. And total plays, they had 64, 2 sacks allowed, 1 punt, had only 4 penalties, very disciplined game from them, for 24 yards given up, 2 fumbles lost, 1 interception thrown. That was a pick six by Trey Brown. And they had 26 minutes and 53 seconds of possession time. But let's get on to Ryan's focus players. Let's talk about the Seahawks for a minute. Geno Smith. This is much, much better from Geno. This is the kind of Seahawks that we were looking for in week 1, and it just wasn't there. Geno Smith went 32 for 41 with 328 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Now we get to Kenneth Walker, and Kenneth Walker did a lot of movement in this game, a lot of movement, but not too many yards. He carried the ball 17 times, had 43 yards, 2.7 yards per carry. And that's just a testament to the Lions' defensive line and their defense in general. But he had 2 touchdowns. So great showing from him. And wide receiver Tyler Lockett, one of the most underrated receivers in the game. You need a big play. If you have Tyler Lockett on your team, you're going to get it from Tyler Lockett. 8 receptions in this game for 59 yards, 7.4 yards per reception, 2 touchdowns. And on the other side, this is why I say, even in a loss, I can respect the Lions and Dan Campbell. I love the way they play. Jared Goff went 28 for 35. He had 323 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, and that was the unfortunate pick six for him. But let's talk about David Montgomery for a second, man. Bears running back. He was a former Bear, and he was a great player for the Bears. But he's now with the Lions now, and before his injury, before he got carted off the field, hope he's okay. Really like him as a player, so I hope he doesn't miss a significant amount of time. But he carried the ball 16 times, had 67 yards, 4.2 yards per carry, and 1 touchdown. That guy was a menace. He was a big guy who, if Lions had him still, they probably would have won that game. They would have gotten a lot more third downs, that's for sure. But we talk about a guy in Josh Reynolds, and he is a former teammate of Jared Goff's when he was on the Rams. So these two know each other very well. He had 5 receptions, 66 yards, averaged 13.2 yards per reception, and had 2 touchdowns. This guy, this guy was very good, and he was a pain for the entire Seahawks secondary. The Seahawks would get a touchdown first opening drive. Oh, well, Josh Reynolds would answer that right back. Oh, they're down by 10 in the fourth. They need a touchdown and a field goal. Well, Josh Reynolds got that touchdown, and they got a field goal to tie the game to send it to overtime. He is that guy, and he's a clutch guy, and I never thought he would be, but here we are. Speaking of defense, let's talk about the Seahawks defense for a minute, and let's talk about a D lineman, Draymond Jones. Man, I love him. I already do. 1 solo tackle, 1 assisted tackle, and his first sack as a Seahawk, and I'm so glad to have him. A good pass rush from the team. Decent enough pass rush from the team. I'm happy about that, and that's why I say everything improved from this game. But we get to the corner, Trey Brown, and he is making the case. I remember last game in the home opener. If you haven't watched that video, I would highly recommend you go watch that video because this is a totally different tone. I was saying Trey Brown doesn't look like corner two material. He really doesn't. But again, he looks good in the slot. And I think that's where they need to keep him from now on. He is a good guy, and he proves it here. 1 sack, 1 interception, 3 solo tackles, and that interception was a pick six. His first career interception goes for a pick six. That is great. And I hope he can keep it up because it seems like for me, when we hear about Trey Brown, he'll make an amazing play and you'll love him. And then the next play, he'll give up a touchdown to Josh Reynolds that you're like, dude, he really just needs to be on that. It's the consistency thing that I'm looking for. And I hope he can stay consistently good for this Seahawks secondary when they need him to be. And for the second time in 2 games, I'm talking about Bobby Wagner. And trust me, this isn't biased. Even if I love Bobby Wagner as much as I do, he just, again, another tackling machine. Just a guy that's everywhere all at once. He is a part of this run stopping team, and I am so happy to have him back. 7 solo tackles, 3 assisted tackles, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions, but he played wonderfully. And we get to the Lions, and man, this Lions defense made me really worried coming into this game because remember, no Charles Cross, no Abraham Lucas. We're starting with two backup tackles in Stone Forsyth and Ryan Curhan. And Aiden Hutchinson, man, let's talk about him for a second. What a monster. And this is why he went to the Lions. This is why when he was picked up by the Lions, I was like, "Oh no," because he's in the conference. I don't like playing against him. He is a menace. He had two solo tackles, no sacks, no interceptions. So you look at that and go, well, why is he your focus player? He didn't really do much, but he was in the face. He was in the face of Geno Smith, the pocket presence. Like I'm surprised Geno Smith and the Lions defense didn't get more sacks because Aiden Hutchinson was in his face a lot, and he, in the game he tipped a ball and it almost got picked off. Like it almost got picked off. He went took down Kobe Parkinson who was blocking. He immediately just swiped that blocker away, and he got his hand up, and I'm like, how did he do that? How are you allowing him to get through like that? So great game from Aiden Hutchinson. And let's talk about DB CJ Gardner Johnson, former Eagles safety, and man, 7 solo tackles, 1 assisted tackle, 0 sacks, 0 interceptions. Another player that is just insane in the tackling department. He went off and hurt himself a little bit, but he came back on the field and he was still a competitor. So we'll see what happens with him, and I hope that that's just a little bit of a, oh, I got hit on this play a little bit and it tweaked something, but I'm okay to keep playing. And I wish him all the best with the Lions because he seems like he's at home here. And let's talk about linebacker Alex Anzalone. Again, another tackling machine. It's a broken record, but 5 solo tackles, 2 assisted, 1 sack. And this guy just, he scares me too, because this is why you're looking at Kenneth Walker's stats and going 2.7 yards per carry. This is exactly why these guys in the middle of this team just didn't let the run go. And, I'm just, man, this was such a good game. But let's get to my final thoughts. What went well? Well, I'm happy to report that everything from this game was vastly improved. This is the kind of Seahawks that we were expecting coming into week 1. It's very nice to see the offense actually move the ball this time, and to see Geno Smith win it in overtime is just, it's great. I love that aspect. However, let's focus on what to improve on. The only things that I can find that really need improvement are the amount of penalties. The amount of penalties, and you will know this if you've watched all throughout my entire Seahawks game recap playlist, that I've been talking about penalties and I've been harping on penalties. The amount of discipline penalties that needs to happen. Like there was the one hit on that kind of play where Jared Goff didn't have the ball, and number 52, Daryl Taylor, hit him late and hit him hard. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, dude, even if you didn't know I hope you didn't know he had the ball, because if you just hit him outright, that's not okay. That's a Bush League kind of play, and you could have really hurt somebody. And it looks like tempers can flare a lot on this Seahawks team. And that's why Bobby Wagner and Quandre Diggs need to get a control of that defense of unit and just chill them out, because it's great to play with aggression, but if those turn into unnecessary penalties, then you're just costing games, and that's not what I want to see. My final thoughts. All in all, I loved watching this game. As you can tell, I'm super hyped for this game. I think it's only week 2, and I'm kind of setting the bar higher, but I think this will be the best game of the season. It's always been a really fun, entertaining game, high scoring games for the Lions and Seahawks over the past couple of years. So I love when these two teams get together. But it was a great win after a disappointing week 1. hats off to the Lions defense and the entire organization because I love watching them play. I love their strong game, and I hope they can do well this season because I really want to see what Dan Campbell does with this ragtag group of merry men, and we'll see what happens. Anyways, that is it for the Seahawks game recap of week 2. And what a game. Remember what I said, Seahawks fans. It's only week 1. You just needed to take a breath and come back, and look what happens. The Seahawks are now on the scoreboard, and let's now build some momentum. We still got some things to improve on, mainly the penalties, but we can build on this. Momentum is a thing, man. It'll keep going. And if you have it, keep going. We'll see what happens. But, anyways, I hope you really enjoyed the game because I really did. And I will see you on Saturday for News of the Week, episode number 7. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. This is Ryan Koki of the Seahawks Recap Show signing off. Go, Hawks, go.